policy on it. I think there's enough trouble going on where kids aren't learning how to read, write, and add up. They certainly know nothing about the elections. They know nothing about governments anymore. They're getting taught so much different stuff that doesn't apply to them, that we need to get back to basics. So as far as like talking about the agenda and different things like that at such a young age, I disagree with it.
Yeah, so we do have a policy on decentralised education, which this kind of falls under, but we would like to look at alternative options to the national curriculum. So if people want to learn about stuff like that, they can create their own early child care centres and schools, and people have the choice to send their kids there. If they don't, there's another option. That's the party policy, but for myself, I don't agree with it. I think we should just let kids be kids.
Thank you for the question, Pam. And it's safe to say that we grew up, I didn't see you, but we grew up in different generations, and I have a niece and nephew, and I hope that they do learn about those things in primary school, because we're an evolving society, and transgender rights, reconciliation, all these things that should be on the table from a young age. That way they normalise them, and we can grow up in a society that accepts people for who they are. We understand the history of this country, which I personally didn't learn anything about, First Nations, and I think I was, that is a terrible thing. We all are disadvantaged from not understanding and appreciating the history of this country. So I think that all those things should be available for teachers to teach, and I think that there are at the moment there aren't the resources for teachers to do it in a way that makes them feel comfortable. So having it in a way, providing resources so teachers can, teach the students these things. And I sat through religion classes at school and didn't want to be there, but I did it anyway. And I think that moving forward, we need to create a society that is more accepting and understanding of other people.
Early childhood education is so important. Something I really want to prioritise as a candidate is making decisions for the long term. And I think too many decisions are made on election cycles. We see it every time to make sure the governments are able to keep their job and not go through. So early childhood education is something that is absolutely massive. As far as the issues you bring up around those, I'm yet to see the studies or the actual examples of where this has become a big problem in our society. When I'm out talking to people around Ararat, they aren't the things that I've talked to, and I'm happy to have a chat to you afterwards as if this is number one on your list. So I'm happy to get to it, but what I really want to focus on is making sure that there is housing in Ararat, that there are workers here, and I really would like to put that at the top of the list. I'm not sure where these issues are affecting in the long run, but let's have a chat afterwards, and I can find out your issues there. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Steve. And as Education Minister, I worked with the State and Territory Education Ministers to basics right, so that you can learn the science that we're going to need to provide the innovation that we need going forward. And so the Commonwealth Government will continue to work with the states and territories to make sure the curriculum is one that will see our young people get the education that they need. And when it comes to the content, we've got to make sure that all the content in the curriculum is age appropriate. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Lloyd. I certainly do hearing tonight as to proper education and real facts. Kids should be able to grow up to be kids, and they should be able to hold their head high no matter what persuasion that they want to be. And when they become adults, they should be able to hold their head high, that they can say they're gay or they're lesbian or they're trans. That this is a problem that we do have in our country, that we're trying to grapple with the rainbow flag, and we as a country need to accept each and every person in our country.
Thank you, Linda. Someone over here that I've just been waiting on, unless Cam, is there someone? No? Get up.
Jim Cox, I'm a small businessman, I'm a member of the Liberal Party, and I'm the proprietor of the Beaufort News and Tats. Just to change the subject. Change the subject a little bit. We're talking about local issues and that. I read the papers most mornings, and what I'd like to ask the panel, their issues on national security. At the moment, you read the papers every morning, the headline.
In my life, illegal, against the UN Charter, immoral, and causing indescribable humanitarian pain. We're seeing that with the assertive role that China are playing more and more in our region. And one why we've invested in shipping, it's why we've invested in our hardware to make sure that we can defend this nation. We've lifted the GDP expenditure when it comes to defence every year to ensure that we are prepared as a nation, and we are going to have to be.
Thank you for the question. And like you, I read the newspapers and am very nervous by what's happening abroad. But I feel that it comes down to energy security in terms of, on a broader scale, what's happening in Ukraine. Like we saw the price of fuel being directly affected here. And at the moment, we're relying on fossil fuels to live our lives. And as long as we continue to rely on fossil fuels, we'll continue to be relying on other countries to provide those. So I think for Australia's future, it is the Greens policy to lower our investment in defence spending, but that is coupled with making Australia a sustainable country where we have more electric vehicles, so we can power vehicles from solar and wind, and that way we're not relying on oil from the likes of Russia and Saudi Arabia, which, as Dan said, are, treating people in inhumane ways, and we shouldn't be accepting the things that they're producing anyway. So making Australia a more sustainable country where more things are made internally, and we aren't relying on countries that, investing in building proper relationships with countries that are focused on peace and working together rather than an us versus them mentality.
In defence of Australia, at the moment it's really easy to take over. It's just stop fuel supply. We have no fuel stocks. So we'd be on our knees within a few days. We have no way of transporting anything around, no way of getting medicines. All our emergency services would stop. And this has been going on for years. And the Energy Council has turned around and said everything's okay. We have the facilities to be able to fix that here, and that's what we need to do. We need to be able to have our own fuel stocks so that we're not cut off from the rest of the world. As far as our defence, with Navy and Air Force, we've been downgrading it over the years. Apparently we're getting some submarines in the next 20 years, if we ever get them. We should buy them now. We shouldn't just wait. We've got a submarine facility in South Australia. I used to come from South Australia. They could build subs. Why don't we just build them here? I mean, we just don't do anything anymore. We need to look after ourselves, and we need to defend ourselves, and we've got the facilities to do it.
Yes, thank you. The federal government has certainly dropped the ball when it comes to the Solomon Islands, and this has given the Chinese an opening only 2,000 kilometres away from our shores. Now, when they were advised to act, they slept, and when it got right to the last minute, they sent a junior minister. They couldn't sort of see the seriousness of what was going on, or they didn't believe the opposition that was advising them. With the Chinese, we as a country were very close with the Chinese. We had a lot of dealings and trade with the Chinese, and that all changed when our government started poking the bear over the COVID-19 affair. the Paris agreement with the submarines.
What they're actually doing is hurting people like.
And that's our defence chief. So
that they are paying us for something that we can make money off. These sanctions right now